In this video, we're going to be talking about how to change backgrounds using blend modes. Isn't that interesting? Now remember what I told you. I told you that overlay is such a blend mode that it deletes everything which is 50% gray, right? Which is neutral gray, totally erases it, makes it invisible. Now, if you have shot your subject with a gray background, will changing the blend mode remove the background? We'll find out. So without any further ado, let's get started. So here we are in Photoshop, and before we do anything, blend modes are major. We need to understand them first. So I told you that opacity makes invisible everything which is 50% gray. But soft light does the same and hard light does pretty much the same. How are they different? So we need to understand them. So in the background, I have a very pretty image landscape, and I have covered it with 3 strip colors, okay, in another layer just above it. So in the middle we have neutral gray. On the right hand side we have something a lighter gray. On the left hand side we have darker gray. So when you change the blend mode to say overlay, what happens is the middle remains the same, okay. Let's have a closer look. Even if I turn this off, it's the same. I turn it on, it's the same. Now, overlay, if you remember, I had said, makes everything brighter than neutral gray brighter and darker than neutral gray darker. So that's what it's doing. So on the left hand side we had darker gray, so it's making that darker, and lighter gray, it's making that lighter. Now how is soft light different from this? So if you change, wait a minute, let me just lower down the volume, something is coming up. Okay, if you change this to soft light, watch. It's also making the right hand side lighter and the left hand side darker. But here's the difference. The difference is it's making it less lighter and it's making it less darker. So it's a matter of threshold. So overlay has a more narrower threshold. Even if something is little lighter than neutral gray, it makes it a whole lot lighter as compared to soft light. Okay. Now, soft light has a wider threshold. Even if it is much more brighter than neutral gray, it makes it a little brighter. So it's all about thresholds. Now let's move on to hard light. Now what does hard light do? Hard light is stronger than overlay. Now, it makes the darker more darker than overlay, and something brighter than neutral gray more brighter than overlay. So you can think of it like this. Soft light is very subtle, overlay is in the middle, hard light is very hard. Okay? Extreme, soft light, hard light, overlay. So today we're going to experiment the same with this image. So this image was submitted by Shawnee Annette. She's an awesome portrait photographer. To check out more of his work, go ahead and check it out right here. So as you can see, this was shot in a gray background. But it's darker. It's not 50% gray, but it's gray. And that's going to help us. How? Let's find out. So let's find her a nice background using the Pixels Photoshop plugin, and this allows you to search for free stock photos from inside of Photoshop and import them as layers. So I saved this, so let's click on it. It will download the photo and import it in our image. So it has imported. Let's just minimize that and let's make it a little bigger. Control T. Also, if you don't have that plugin, if you have that background saved in your computer, what you can do, you can go to File, open and import as. You know how to do that, right? Or here's another tip. What you can do is you can also go to File, Place Embedded, and search for that image, and that will embed that image over this one. Okay, so that's one of the ways of doing it. Now let's make this a little bigger. So Control T, press and hold Shift and just drag it. All right, to the very bottom. Now once you have dragged it, press Enter and then just adjust it the way you like. Maybe, okay, there's another tip. Press and hold Shift while you move it. That way you move it along the line. You don't go up and down. If the shift is not held, when you move it, this might happen, okay? If the shift is held, when you move it, it moves straight, okay? If you want to move it something like that, press and hold Shift. If you want to move it like this, it will move in straight line. So Shift is the key. So suppose we want it to be like this, okay? Now what do we have to do? We have to make 2 copies of the background layer. Controller Command J twice, okay? Name this one hard light Oops, I did something wrong. Name this one hard light. Okay, to name a layer, all you have to do, you have to double click on the text. Okay, double click on the text, hard light. Okay, and name this one fill in. You don't have to name it later, but just for an indication, I'm telling you. Now, turn off the fill in and take the hard light above the background. Take the fill in also above it. Okay, fill in is the topmost layer, then the hard light, then the background, then the normal, the background, the locked layer. Okay, so change the hard light's blend mode to hard light. Okay, now you can also try overlay another blend mode, soft light and overlay, and see how it looks. But hard light, watch, look at the image, how beautifully it has. Of course, it's showing some strange things through her body, but here's the thing, just look at her hair, just look at these intricate selections, just look at it. It's so amazing. Just a little bit of adjustment and we can fix it. Now here's the key. Now here's the thing, I usually get confused between here's the key and here's the thing, but that's a different story. Alright, so if you turn off this one, you see the background is a little lighter, but if you turn this back on, turn off and turn on, you see the background becomes darker. And this is going to help us. This is a positive thing because this is matching now. Okay, had the background been brighter, this wouldn't have matched. Now if you go ahead and if you add something like levels and curves to this one, if you make this brighter, the background will automatically become brighter according to the colors or the adjustments that you do in this. Okay, now of course there's going to be some adjustments we're going to do in this. Sometimes what's going to happen is that the color is going to change when you apply hard light, which we will look at later in the tutorial, but for now this is not affecting the color. You know why? Because the background doesn't have much of a color. Okay, so now we need to adjust the light. Okay. To adjust the light, add a levels adjustment layer, and I don't know why this is so huge. Let's make it a little smaller, and there you go. And make this level adjustment layer to be applied only to this hard light layer. To do that, click on this. This creates a clipping mask. Also, another way of creating a clipping mask is press and hold the Alt option and click on this line. Okay, two ways of creating a clipping mask. We need to make it lighter. Take this ladder from the right to the left. Don't make it blow out. Alright, so this is great. And middle ones, not too much. Now this is something I like. Okay, let's look at the before and after. So this is the before, this is the after. So we love the light right now. Now what do we have to do? We have to fill in the areas. Okay, to fill in the areas, we're simply going to use the fill in layer. So let's turn this layer on, but this time we're going to create a negative mask and then fill in the middle part in which the background goes through her body. So press and hold Alt option and click on this mask button. So this creates a negative mask. Now take a brush, make it a little bigger, make it a little softer. To make the brush bigger, press and hold Alt option, hold the right mouse button, drag it to the right to make it bigger, drag it to the left to make it smaller, drag it upwards to make it soft, downwards to make it hard. Okay, so make it soft, make it a little bigger, and let's zoom in and simply paint over these areas. There you go. Now once you paint, you begin to realize that this is darker than the adjustments that we had made. Okay, so you can add the same levels here, or what you can do, you can even add some curves. Now let's try adding the same levels adjustment to this one, and let's create a clipping mask and let's see whether that's adjusting or not. That's pretty much adjusting. We need to do a couple of more adjustments to this, but I think, how about adding a curves adjustment layer? So let's add a curves adjustment layer. You can do levels also, but let's try curves and let's brighten this up. Okay, but this is affecting the whole layer. We don't want that to happen. We just want this to affect this one, the fill-in one. So, and increase it until it matches with that of the background. Now this is good. This is good. Close it. Now just paint in. Come back to this mask, paint in with white, brush, white is the color and foreground color, and just simply paint in. Just don't go near the edges, just don't paint near the edges, just paint in the middle and you'll be fine. Alright, so you can take as much time as you want in this, but you get the idea, right? So this helps you a lot. Now you can be careful here, the sides, not super careful, you can pretty much work your way. Okay. So let's fill in the middle and then we'll take care of the edges. So simply fill in these areas. I'm doing a very rough job, guys. Take your time and do this perfectly, okay? So, but I'm gonna show you my final, which took me a little more time, but see how easily it does the selection for you, and you don't have to do all those intricate select and mask and all those stuff, okay? You don't have to do any of that. All I'm doing right now is painting with white, and that's all, right? So it's super easy to do. Soft brush, white, and it's all fun. So you can take your time doing the edges, but it's all fine. Have a look. Just so quickly we have made a composite. And if you have spilled out by mistake, for example, if you are painting here, for example, and if you spilled out by mistake, what you can do is you can press X, and this makes the foreground color black, and then you can paint back in this, right? So you can press X again to get this area right, and you can take your time as much as you want, and you can also do a little bit of selection here if you want to, but I don't think you would need that. So we have done a pretty good job. Now how about adding a little bit of light and drama to it? So as you can see, if I turn this hard light layer off, the background is already a little brighter. So if I add a mask to this hard light, let's add a mask. And if I paint in this area with black, so this area will become invisible in this layer, and therefore the background will become brighter. So let's come to the mask, let's select the brush, and let's make the brush a little bigger, and make sure the foreground color is black. And don't paint over the subject, just to the side, just a little bit. Now this adds a little beautiful light here. So you can do a little more here. So as you can see, just a beautiful light adding a little drama. Look at the before and after. Now, isn't this looking beautiful? Now you can go ahead, add another curves above all of it, okay? Add another curves to add more drama to it. Maybe make it a little brighter, a little darker. So just a little drama. Before, after. Now let's try some cross processing. It would be fun. Now there is something in Photoshop which is kind of hidden, but you can use it. It's fine. It's like Instagram filter, but you love it. So go to the adjustment layers and choose color lookup. Now here, just have a look. So many presets you have that you can choose from. Candlelight, crisp forms, amazing presets. So let's go ahead and choose one of my favorite, horror blue. Wow, it looks really beautiful. Look at the before and after. Amazing. This gives an amazing effect. Now here's the thing, you can control the intensity by using the opacity slider. I've always told you opacity is going to be your best friend. So let's decrease the intensity to somewhat, maybe not too much. Maybe 57, 55, let's keep it 55. Now add one more color lookup. You can combine different presets, okay? Let's add one more color lookup, and this time let's choose edgy amber. And this is good. Now we have to decrease the intensity to something like this, 35. This is good. And just increase the intensity of this one from 55, just a little bit more. Maybe 65, good. And let's add one more color lookup, and this is going to be crisp form, but this is too much, so we're going to decrease the intensity, increase it a little bit. Let's increase the overall brightness. Let's add one more brightness contrast, or maybe channels would curves would do. So let's increase the overall brightness. All right. Before, after. Now as you can see that this side is getting a little more darker, very dark. We don't want that to happen. So what you can do, you can add a brightness contrast layer and increase the brightness, and watch. Once you're satisfied with this side, just this side, say 60, you're satisfied with 60. So close it and then right click on it, go to blending options, and how about decreasing the brightness from the already brighter area? So take the slider of the underlying layer from the left. So as you can see, brightness goes away from this, and we want brightness to go away from extra dark areas also. So just this area. So this is fine, and to make it smoother, press and hold Alt or Option and click on this and make it smoother from here. Do the same for the right side. Right. So have a look before, after. It adds a little bit here. So you want to create a mask, Control Command I, and just take the brush and just paint over that particular area with white. Make sure white is the foreground color and just paint over this area if you want to, just a little bit. So that's a little trick there. If you think it's helpful, it is. So yeah, so that's just a little trick there. Okay, before, after, adds a little more dimension to it. Have a look. I don't think I should have applied it here on her forehead, just a little bit, and decrease the opacity, of course. Have a look before, after. So that's pretty much done for this image. Now let's move on to the next one. Why the next one? Now remember what I told you about changing the colors, manipulating the colors of the image when you change the blend mode to hard light. Because the hard light, a kind of bit changes the colors and does something. So let's have a look. So by the way, this image was submitted by Kareem Ben Gemma. He's an amazing, awesome portrait photographers. I'm really grateful for these awesome photographers to let me edit their images. I'm really fortunate to do that. You can check more of his work right here. Okay, so let's jump straight in. So here I have already done the work for you so that I don't have to go through the whole process. So we have the background image and then the layer, okay, the background layer and then the hard light layer. I have not changed the blend mode yet. Now when you change the blend mode, have a look. Have a look. It's changing the colors here. Okay, it's kind of desaturating them. Right? So what to do now? So add a hue saturation adjustment layer, and sometimes what's going to happen, it's going to oversaturate it. Depends upon the background. Okay. Also the subject, but totally depends upon the background, how colorful or non-colorful the background is. So as you can see, we need to increase the reds here. The reds are totally gone. So what we would do, we would go to reds and increase the reds, the saturation of the reds. As you can see now, the hair is looking natural. Now here's another tip. What you can do is that you can change the blend mode to saturation. Now what that will do, let me show you what that will do. No matter how much lightness you change, that's not gonna brighten the image. See, it's just making it black and white. Okay. No matter how much hue you change, that's not gonna affect the image. Why? Because the blend mode is saturation. So that's a great part of having the saturation blend mode, that it just affects the saturation, right? So we would increase the saturation of what? Let's reset that, of reds to match with that of the background. Now increase the saturation. Now this is too much, of course. So now this is great. Now we want this to be just affect this one, the hard light one. So let's create a clipping mask. And there you go. Now, one of the keys of matching the color is to have a look at the original one. Image again and again, press and hold Alt or Option and click on it. Look at how the hair was. Okay, just have a look at how the hair was. Then Alt, press and hold Alt again and press it again. So just have a look. So don't look at how bright it has become. Just look at how the hair was. So you can always go back and go to red, and we just adjust it just a little bit, and maybe go to the yellows and decrease the saturation of the yellows just a little bit. Okay, now you can add the fill-in layer. I have already added it, and there you go. Now it's not quite matching, so what we would do, we would have to brighten the layer a little bit. Okay, so let's go ahead to the fill-in layer and let's brighten it using the curves, and the curves just apply to that one. So clipping mask and then brighten it up just a little bit. Okay, if you want to. There you go. So if you want to brighten the background up also, what you can do, you can come to the hard light layer and you can brighten that up using curves or levels. So let's add levels. Let's add curves this time. So make sure that has a clipping mask just applying to this one. So you can make it a little brighter too if you want to. Okay. And if you do that, you again have to go to that curves which is affecting the filling layer and make it even more brighter. Now here's another key. The key is that the hairs are not completely coming in. As you can see, there's a couple of things. It's not filling in properly and it's not dark enough. So what to do? Stack another hard light layer, as simple as that. So go back to the hard light layer and make a copy of it. So Controller Command J. Now as you can see, the hairs are filling in so properly, but there's another problem. The problem is it's making everything dark. We don't want that to happen, right? So what we would do, come to the hard light layer which is beneath, because on the above hard light layer we have the curves and hue saturation being applied, so it's safe, kind of safe. You can do that in that one also. Let's come to that one, press Ctrl Alt Option and click on this mask button, and now take the brush and just paint over the areas that you want to darken, okay, with white. So decrease the flow, please, just 20 or something like that, and just paint over these areas, just fill it up. You might have to decrease the saturation just a little bit here and there. You get the idea, right? See, have a look at, see how now nicely it kind of fills in these areas, adds a little shadow to it. Okay, so that's another tip here we left out, so you do that properly. I quickly did it to show you guys. So to fill in these areas, and if you spill it over X and then paint over this area. So let's have a look at before and after. So this is the before, this is the after. See how nicely that fills in. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this one. Now also I know I need to go to the fill in and just fill up this one, fill up this space. I actually increase the flow just a little bit, fill up this space, and you get the idea, right? So that's how you change backgrounds using blend modes. Now a couple of things to keep in mind. Number one, you have to shoot it in gray background for this method to work, okay? Number two, remember what the blend mode does. The complete blend mode sector here, overlay, soft light, hard light, this total area pretty much does the same. It deletes everything which is 50% gray and has kind of different ways of treating what is lighter and what is darker than 50% gray. So, and number three, you need to remember that you need to be very careful with the color and the lightness when you apply the hard light. Now when you apply the hard light, it can oversaturate your image, and it can also desaturate your image. It can take away the reds, take away the yellows, or increase the reds or increase the yellows. So accordingly, you need to adjust. If the color is wrong, adjust using the hue saturation adjustment layer, and if the light is wrong, adjust using the levels or the curves. Also, you can add a little bit of special effects using a mask in hard light layer. And of course, to add more cross-processing effects, presets which you can do, adjustment layer, color lookup, and try the different presets. I hope this video helped you, and if it did, make sure to give us a like, and don't forget to subscribe, and not just subscribe, click on that bell button so that you don't miss anything. I'll see you guys in my next one. Till then, stay tuned and make sure that you keep creating.
We are dreaming in the dark. We are nothing more than dust. Search but you stay lost. We are